Hey, welcome to the Elle Russ Show, where we explore ways to get healthy, wealthy, and wise. With a combination of guest interviews and solo episodes, I hope you will be inspired and motivated to become the best of whatever you are. I'm Elle Russ, #1 best-selling author and subject expert with over a decade of helping thousands of people across the globe. Visit my website, elleruss.com, to learn more about free guides, masterclasses, online courses, and more. Enjoy the show. Hey everyone, today we've got Casey Powers on the show. He's a lifelong entrepreneur, founder, CEO, CMO, and an advisor with over 20 years of executive leadership. So he's known for driving substantial revenue growth, expanding market share, and he is passionate about marketing, technology, and AI. Welcome to the show, Casey.
Hi, Elle. Thank you so much for having me here. It's great to meet you.
So today we're going to be talking about the cost of everything because Casey has a lifelong journey of going through all of the ins and outs, and also how each level of where you were at relates to where we are technology. You've had to grow and learn as time goes by. So Casey is very fit. He's a model of fitness, and I'm going to ask you about that later, Casey, because I
All
would
right.
assume you would think that health would be a little bit of a contributing factor to continued success, I bet.
Yes.
But let's start out. So like you're young, you're about to go out in the world. What's your first career? What are you doing?
That's a great question because my father was the one who was an entrepreneur. He was a restaurateur. So I grew up in the restaurant business, so to speak. Even though my parents got divorced at an early age, we were still all very close. So he had a restaurant and he owned some apartments and he was always in and out of things. So as a young kid, I was exposed to that. So my first business at 18 was Casey's Pizza and Arcade. I had I sold pizza and I had 22 video games, coin operated back then, right?
Where
And
did you have an actual like physical storefront for this? How did this,
oh yeah, yeah. I grew up in a really fun place called El Centro, California in the Imperial Valley. And people who know that place, it gets to about 119 degrees for a couple of months out of the year. It's very hot there, but a fun place to grow up. It's low desert. It's about 120 miles east of San Diego. And so, yes, I had a physical location there. My father, because he owned an Italian restaurant, him and I were talking, and he knew my entrepreneurial kind of vision and drive for things, the way I viewed things. He asked if I would be interested in this one location. I said, sure. So I went ahead and went there and set it up and moved the equipment. And I was the boss, the guy. I hired folks, hired a lot of friends I went to school with, things like that. Taught me a lot about business. And by the way, an 18-year-old probably shouldn't own a business like that.
Yeah,
But
what a massive responsibility for your father to throw you into and let you sort of just learn by frying pan. When was it quickly successful from the beginning? I mean, you got buddies, you're 18, you all love pizza, and I'm assuming, or did it take a minute, or did it blow up right away?
no, here's the thing that's really cool about that time in my life. It taught me a handful of lifelong lessons. Number one, and this will sound funny, but pay your bills. I didn't pay the electrical bill, and here I own an arcade. I just kind of let it go, and literally the power went off on 22 video games at one time. And
Mm.
talk about a bunch of kids being really angry over that. I'm like, what happened? And I go look on the board, and there's a red notice. I call my dad. I go, hey. He goes, did you pay the bill? I said, no, I didn't. So that taught me at an early age, about finance. I mean, right in your face, and how it just devastated the business for 4 or 5 hours. But no, we did okay. We did well. Another lesson that I learned there was this was a very transitional time in technology. So there's 22 video games, all the ones you hear about now, Donkey Kong, Miss Pac-Man, Defender, Centipede, all these games. And kids are getting quarters from their parents. Well, this is around 80, I guess about 1980. The first video games are starting to come out in the next year and a half, like Nintendo and things like that. And when they came out, here's another lesson I learned early. When technology changes, especially like that, it was a culture change. All of a sudden, kids are getting these consoles at home. They cost $200, right? A parent is not going to give their kids $3 in quarters to go play video games after that. So I saw a big decline in business. I remember one Christmas about a year and a half into it. So what that,
When everyone got their consoles for Christmas.
yes, yes,
Right,
yes.
right. How long did you run that? I mean, you started at 18.
Yeah, so I had it for 2.5 years and it ran its course because primarily business was really slowing down because of home video games, right? So, and it was time for me to go. I started really getting interested in technology and computers are starting to come out. So I never went to a formal college per se. I never got a 4-year degree. Wasn't my thing, but I did uh, attend tech school and learned how to work on computers. And that is what landed me to where I am today. I'll try to make this quick. I
No, you
really
don't have to
enjoyed,
make it quick, but let me interject and ask you about the technology training. Are we talking about being sort of like just a system, like a network administrator, where you're going to go and help people with their broken down computers? Like, what were you getting trained in, or was it to program?
yeah, not programming. It was technical, looking at schematics, not really designing circuits, but fixing computers. So computers were just coming out. IBM had the first personal computer, Apple's coming out, all these computer home PCs. And what was really happening is organizations, companies, municipalities, businesses were all starting to bring in these computers for the first time, right? So the company I was with, we would sell the computers and set them up. So some network administration, a lot of software installs and training. And what happened was I started getting calls personally because I was doing support from customers asking if I could come to their location and teach them some things on the computer, either some software tricks or upgrade a hard drive or whatever it may be. And then entrepreneurship kicked in. I thought, wow, there's a market for this. No one was really doing training at that time. So I wanted to figure out a way, and this is the first time it popped in my head. How can I make money without being there? Meaning that if I went to 3 different locations after work and trained people, yeah, I could make a few $100, but if I never went, I wouldn't make anything. So a friend of mine was doing weddings. He was doing recordings, videos of weddings. And he said, hey, why don't I record you doing a class? So I said, sounds good. And I didn't even do that. I jumped over that and I wrote a script on how to use Windows. And I hired a camera crew and I hired an actress and a facility and we shot it. And I ended up doing five video courses. And here's another area that I learned at that time in my life. Now I'm 25. I partnered with Microsoft. I became a beta tester at 25. And I really dug into Windows at the time because I
Hmm.
was writing this script. And Microsoft called me and said, who are you? Why you're sure active. You're finding all these bugs. So this is what they did, Elle. I finished it. I marketed. I started selling it to retail, but I started getting orders from big corporations, like 1 or 200 pieces at a time, full retail. And what I found out was that Microsoft put me in their corporate resource book. So for being a good beta tester for them and working with them. So that taught me the value of partnership. It
I love
was,
this. I
yeah,
I want to get to that. I want to point out and highlight something I also heard. Couple things. First of all, your entrepreneurial mind kicked in then when you saw a need. But again, you were critically thinking about this thing that was happening, and you decided, hey, there's a niche here, right? And you jumped on that niche. And the other thing I love is that what you did, I mean, nobody was thinking about filming or doing a course or like video trainings even way back then. You were like way ahead of your time. But I love that you just doing it out there, being like, hey, I see a need. I'm going to go help people who don't know how to use this stuff and make it easier for them. And I love that the company noticed that. I mean, talk about just going for what you're passionate about and something amazingly beneficial and life changing coming from that. Like they saw that out in you. And now there might be a thousand people doing that, but how innovative and also how needed. Look, I used to use Windows. I worked in the tech industry. And yeah, you were sort of, if anything, one of the first quote unquote, like technical writers, probably for Windows, essentially.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
So
Thank you.
leadership's amazing. So when you started, okay, so when you started this and you're like, okay, I see the need, people start to come in. Then what other entrepreneurial things kick in mind? Because I'm assuming you're thinking, how do I scale it, right? Because once
Yes.
something's successful, so tell us about that journey.
Yeah. So, and you're right. I'm always thinking scalability. How can I grow this? And what I started doing was I went to the computer manufacturers, and this is a great story for any young person out there or older person, doesn't matter. I would send a videotape with a jar of Orville Redenbacher popcorn to the CEO of Hyundai Electronics at that time, which was big. They were a big Packard Bell computers. I would send them this little package and they would get it. And, doing that over and over again in friendly, letters and emails and all this stuff, they got back to me, and Packard Bell ended up buying something like 50,000 copies to put with every computer they made. They actually inserted it in every box. They liked it so much, it hurt me because they ended up creating their own, a private label version of one. But I got those big sales in it. And Hyundai Computer, same thing. They bought, I think, about 70,000 of them. Crazy numbers, right? I mean, this is like, whoa. And it was nationwide. It was in PC Mall, Mac Warehouse, Egghead Software, those types of things. It went retail. Barnes and Noble. Yeah.
Barnes and Noble too. Wow. Okay. So let's talk about the cost of doing everything. Let's talk about the cost of this endeavor. It doesn't seem like it's a lot considering your friend had a video camera and you just right? I mean, again, you're sending the Orville Redenbacher. Like, it seems as though that this endeavor was probably, I mean, I would assume like the least amount of investment to have it kick up.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, because it's my brain power. I wrote everything, I directed everything. There's still money involved, and I hired a camera crew, I hired a professional actress, all these things. So, but the investment was relatively small as to the next thing I started, which was my larger company called Mobile Planet when I was 29. And these all, the pizza place gave me the experience and trained me. And, when you fail, you get up, all those other things. At 25, it was creating this video course. Ended up making 5 over 3 years. And then at 29, I'm working at a place called Reveal Computer Products. And I would take time off in between, have a good time, all that stuff. And mobile computing products were coming in. And I thought, I want to organize the mobile computing market. There was no place to really buy these products. So I left my job and I started that. And that is where the cost of doing everything hit me right in the face, because you're talking big dollars now. I'm recently married. I have a 1-year-old son, and I want to quit a decent paying job. And out of the garage, I'm trying to start this company through catalogs and soon internet. And what am I going to do? What do I focus on? But early on, I knew what I had to do. I had to get this catalog done. I had to get with vendors, had to meet with people, had to talk with people, had to convince them to give me money to advertise, right? And I had no track record other than the video plates, which was good, though. I could always refer back to that. Hey, check out these pictures. Hey, check out these stories. This is what I'm doing now. But once we got going, I brought on a really good friend of mine, about 9 months working out of the house, joined me on this great venture. Man, the adventure of all this was just incredible. So, it's a whole nother interview for that. I'll tell you the story about the $5,000 grape. But when we're growing this business, and this is real, I'm dealing now again with Microsoft, HP, Sharp, Apple, all these big players, and I got to convince them to work with me. And I'm putting out a catalog, sending out 1 million copies a year. And you can imagine all the directions you can go in. And finally, it hit me. It's like, you cannot do everything, and it becomes addictive when you try to do things, because the whole shiny object syndrome starts to kick in, which I don't think anybody's immune to it in our personal lives or professionally. And professionally, it can really hurt you, especially in a startup environment or even a company that's established.
So what would have been the shiny object there in this scenario that you were like, ooh, or like, what were the shiny objects that you could say, hey, I was doing this thing. These were the shiny objects I ignored or should have ignored or whatever.
Yeah, back then it would have been probably looking at the wrong vendors, aligning myself with the wrong publications, because I need every publication. I got to have every publication.
Gotcha.
Trying to meet too many different people, and not to make it sound rude or anything, but really got to focus. That old 80-20 rule. Back then when it was kind of being talked about at the most, but what are the things I need to do? And one of them was I went back to Microsoft, even though those relationships had dried up because I'd been gone now. But I went to Microsoft. I met Bill Gates. I met Paul Allen. We became somebody they liked. They adopted us. They liked Mobile Planet. And because of that, they were launching their new mobile OS back then, Windows CE. So what I knew was give them the attention. And we gave them the attention. We put them on the cover of our catalog without charging them. And all of a
Mm.
sudden, they had a vendor, Mobile Planet, that they wanted to see succeed. So we started getting allocated inventory. So right there shows you like that is me focusing on there's two or three big things I'm focusing on, and I'm letting everything else go. But I want to make this clear. That doesn't mean that we let everything go. It means that myself, my partner, and a few other people are focusing on the things that matter most. Now, of course, you always want to be trying things in a much smaller scale, but it should not be the thrust of all the resources of the company.
You know, what you are a great example of is, and I can say this from meeting you and speaking to you many times, is that you're a perfect example of a quiet confidence that people would uh, not necessarily see on the face of it, because your level of self-promotion, your confidence in the ability to put yourself out there, which is one of the number one keys to success. It's
Yeah.
why I teach a course on self-promotion, right? It's so important. Now, can you share with everyone, like, were you have this, if someone met you, they wouldn't think you would be that, like, they'd be like, oh, this is like a really nice, calm person. It doesn't seem like you're Mr. Self-promotion, but you really are. And so you're an example of sometimes confidence can be quiet and subdued. It means it's still there. And it's also usually one of the most refined levels of confidence. But tell us a little bit about that, because what I'm hearing throughout the course of this conversation is your no shame ability to just go, hey, like, it never hurts to ask, which is pretty much my motto in life. So tell us
Right.
a little bit about that part of, because you're going to get rejected. I'm sure you got rejected a
Yeah.
million times. So tell us about how you dealt with that, or did you just never care and were like, oh, well, I don't care. So what if I get rejected?
No, I got a big smile on my face right now because what you just said, I've heard several times, and this is what's crazy. Um, in when I'm in the game, when I'm in the office, when I'm around other business folks or whatever, what I hear back is I hear two different things. One is your passion is infectious. Wow, because I'll get on my soapbox as I call it, and I used to love doing that. Going in, we had a pretty big warehouse at Mobile Planet. I get on a forklift and talk to the whole group. It'd be like 60 people there. That is me, and I know when you and I have met, that's what I hear from other people. So in the office, I'm a speaker. I'm a mentor. I love working with my teams. I love working with other teams in the department. I'm a very pro growth type person and try to help as many people as I can. I'm a visionary that really tries to focus on things that are achievable and not something that doesn't make any sense. But the other side of that, where I've heard this about me that I didn't realize, but if I'm interviewing, like I'll be involved in some of these high level interviews for C-suite folks or whatever, and I would vote on it. I would meet with the CEO, or if I was the CEO at the time or whatever, and I would talk with people and say, no, yes, no, whatever. And in the times that we would hire somebody, and I would befriend these guys, and I've had two guys, one a CRO and one a VP of marketing, tell me afterwards, man, I couldn't read you. We're in the
Yes.
boardroom. You were just like, you had this look on your face. You're asking all these important questions, but I couldn't tell if I was doing good or bad. But it must be a mode that I get into that I'm in deep thought or whatever. I don't mean to come off, in a unfriendly way, which I haven't heard that, but I do hear a lot more if you and I were in an office
No, I can
environment.
I can see how people actually I can see how people they kind of look at you and go, I don't I'm not sure. Like, a nice person asking me questions, but I'm not exactly sure how he feels about it. Yeah. But here's the thing, as a leader, and I want everyone to hear it because it's just so apparent and clear in your demeanor and tone, how beneficial to be you. I bet it lends itself more to diplomacy, being even keeled, like when someone you're working with or working below you for you makes a mistake. Um, you have a level of cool, calm collectedness that we want most leaders to have. No one wants a leader that's going to like fly off the handle unless it's right, really critical, something's burned down. But, so tell us a little bit about that. I bet you've had a lot of really great feedback from all of your, employees and people you work with.
Yeah, one of the really coolest things that happened when we sold the company, when I sold Mobile Planet, five of my employees all left and started their own businesses. And
Oh,
I
isn't
would,
that, well, that's wonderful. You inspired them.
Oh God, it was great. It's like I even get emotional about it because I kept in touch with them for many years, and they often said, "Oh man, when you would get up and speak, or you taught us about this, especially back about customer service or just servicing, what your brand is about, who are you?" And that's one thing I learned early, and I try to share, with everyone. My opinion, obviously, being a good leader is I'm very transparent. We have these agreed upon goals, so everyone understands why we're doing what we're doing and there's no favoritism, things like that. So as long as you have that open communication and you share with people, like I've kind of adopted a new saying now with folks. I said, look, if I don't have an idea and you have an idea, by all means, please share it because you have the passion behind it and the passion to defend it. If you're just nodding your head, oh yeah, okay, oh yeah, okay. If it fails, and then you're not going to know why it failed or understand it. But if you have an idea or an area we want to go look at, and there's nothing, nobody has come up with anything at that moment, by all means. So I encourage people to speak up, is what I'm saying. If you have an idea or a concept or way of improving things, by all means, please speak up and share it with the team, myself, or whoever. And I found when people hear that and they feel empowered, right? They have a voice. As a matter of fact, I really expect
Feedback. I
people.
mean, the importance of
Yeah.
feedback in anything, right? From your
Oh,
employees, from your students, from to make things better, and also to, like you said, empower them, give them a voice, and also what you're doing there is you're creating confidence. You're instilling confidence within them that their opinion matters, and
yes.
everybody appreciates that. So I love that. And on that note, and if you'd like to say more on that, go ahead. But let's get into a few more of these tenets, right? Like one is of leadership. You are actively not only giving clarity and transparency, but continually keeping that line of communication open from them, right? Like if they need to play devil's advocate, they see something wrong or they see something positive, please speak up. That's so important. That creates and fosters such a great environment.
Yeah, and I have God. This is such a great story. I want to share real quickly. I was with an organization, and sales had really fallen off for a variety of reasons, and we were trying to get back to I'll use $1 million a month, and we hadn't quite hit that in years. I get from what I understand, but we were getting to the 800,000 or 900,000, and it was coming to the end of the year, and I just wanted us to hit, and I remember that from my own personal business. It's like we have to hit $1 million in December in sales. It's a huge boost of confidence for the organization. It gets us over that figure. That was kind of a barrier, a mental barrier, in my opinion. Anyway, I spoke with the CEO and he was very supportive, but he was also very concerned. I was the head of marketing. He said, what if we don't get it? I go, but this has to be a company effort. This isn't marketing and this isn't sales. It's everyone. So at the end of November, I put together kind of an internal campaign and I sent it out to everybody. I had everyone that was in our location. There's quite a few. We all got together. I said, this is what we have to do. We have to hit 1 million. This is how we do it. Customer service. You need to call out to existing customers, ask for referrals, sales to existing customers. Do they want to add on? Marketing. Let's try new channels or go back to other mid funnel opportunities and see if we can get them over the line. Anyway, fast forward to the last day of December, and this is when we couldn't produce. I didn't have the resources in house yet to quickly produce ads and things. I was working with a guy in Arizona, and we'd sent out the promotion, and it was dead by noon. Right, we got our sales in, and I remember the CEO came into my office. And he's kind of pacing and he goes, "Damn it, we're going to miss it by 40 grand." Like, oh crap. This is what we didn't want to happen, especially so close.
Mm.
So I remember I went outside and I walked around. Like, damn, what can we do? Because I didn't have the technical experience in house to quickly turn it out again. So I said, screw it. Went back to my office. I called Arizona. I talked to the developer who I'd never met before. I said, I need you to change some wording in this. I want you to send it out to everybody. Can you do that in an hour? And he was like, because he saw the message before, getting everybody behind. He goes, I'll do it, Case. He sent it out. And I'm getting goosebumps telling the story, literally, man, because we ended up closing like 1,040,000. We got 80,000 in sales at the last 4 hours of the day. That we never have done that before, ever. But we did something we never did before, and we sent out the promotion late and on the last day of the year, and we hit it. They brought in cases of champagne. We all celebrated, and it was a cool thing, man. Anyway,
Yeah, quick thinking, quick action. That's what all that is representative of. Also, I want to talk about this too, because and I could be wrong here. I'm taking a leap of I'm taking a leap here. But a lot of let's talk about some of the lessons you've learned like personally with money. Like you learned the lesson obviously about the electricity at the pizza shop, but also you've lived in the same house for like 30 years, right?
Hmm.
You haven't moved around. Those are some of the mistakes people make when they start to get successful in business, aren't they? And can you give some tips on sort of personal, right? Like things that people might want to think about, and maybe staying in the same home there for a while is one of
Yeah.
them. I don't know.
That's a great question. And for me, and what I've been told from other folks who've come back into my life after years, is that just be yourself. And what's myself? I own a truck. I've owned trucks. I've owned 15 trucks. I grew up in a farming community. So what I would tell people, because I have seen what you're talking about, I've seen people go the other way. They make a little bit of money or the hope of making money, and they start going in all these different directions.
Right.
And they're trying to please other people. They're trying to get, the status, things like that.
Right. Or the keeping up with the Joneses. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's tough. If when you're like that, you're never satisfied. Yeah, as a matter of fact, you're probably always stressed and frustrated. For me personally, when we get a big win or we have a win in whatever business, if I'm working for someone or my own venture, I quickly celebrate and then kind of move on. It isn't. I don't devalue that by any means. It's personally like, all right, we've made that. Now let's go forward. So the reward of that is, for me, it's like. And for some folks too, hey, if you want to go out and invest in a lot of real estate, more power to you. I'm just saying, to your point is, be happy, be content, focus on what matters most, and don't let outside influences drive your bad habits or decision making. That's not going to do much for you. And that's I don't see that as much as it used to be several years ago, but I don't see it as much as I do. Or I don't see it as much now as I did back then, is what I'm saying. But yeah, it's be comfortable with yourself. Don't worry about other folks. And also, if someone's challenging you, because it kind of gets all to that, have the confidence to say, either explain yourself or ask them, well, how would you do it differently? That type of thing, right? So
Mhm.
don't, you know what I mean? Not get into a combative type argument, but like, okay, hold on, and which is tough, right? I mean, it's tough. Um,
Right. But when defense is an act of war. So it's better to actually turn it back on them or just say, well, give me your ideas. Why don't you just lay it out and tell me what you think? You know?
yeah, yeah.
So it's so funny because I know you, and as I'm listening to you, I just want to share with the audience, like you are almost, if you could create a definition of a person for like California entrepreneur. I know you grew up in the desert, but you're like California surfer combined with like Wall Street. Like it's just great. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about what are other things that come to mind during your entrepreneurial journey that could be warnings or inspirations to people, things that they may not think about to look at.
Yeah, I would say under the umbrella of, the cost of doing everything is that, young entrepreneurs or even people who have existing businesses, people have these awakenings, right? Like, oh my God, we got to do something, we need to change, whatever. Is it really comes down to leadership at the top, because you do have to have solid leadership. And then the messaging going down is to focus. When I would send folks out to HubSpot's, big event in Boston or Salesforce, and I would, if I didn't go, if I sent them, I would say, do not bring 10 things back because we're not going to do them. Bring 5, because out of 5, we'll do 2. And it's really about focusing. It is so important to understand the value you are bringing to the market. If you're in a new company or an existing company, are you delivering that value? Are you marketing that value, that experience? Are you meeting with your customers? And you need to put your attention on that and not going into 5 different social media channels. Dominate one first and learn. If it's a LinkedIn or a Instagram or X or whatever it may be, learn on one of those and make it successful and find out what you did to make it successful and then replicate that. If you're trying to do 5 different things at one time in any business, you are going to fail. And most importantly, too, I mean, really costly. You're going to have employee turnover because it gets very frustrating because people don't know which direction to go. And I wanted to say something about AI also, because this has been brought up with my colleagues recently. And this is a common statement They go to these leadership meetings. It can be the C-suite or just management just below that. And what's being thrown out is, we need AI. We need to use AI. Come back in our next meeting. I want to see some AI. And you could not have people go in so many different directions because they think that they need AI. And first of all, AI is great. And this is the question that should be asked. What problem do we have? And I'm going to give you an example. What problem do we have that we think that AI can solve? And get that problem. This will be an easy one. I know you're familiar with SaaS. Churn. Churn's a huge issue. I call it the silent killer.
Will you just define that for everybody?
Churn is when, so everything's pretty much
SaaS.
SaaS, yeah, subscription-based services. Churn is when you start losing subscribers. So on their enrollment date or their anniversary date to re-enroll, they bail on you. They stop your service, which the cost of getting the new customer is super expensive. So that's why there's a lot of attention more and more on churn, is that you need to keep your customers. And then, of course, you need to add to it. But it costs more to get a new customer than it does to keep one happy. So with churn, can be for a variety of problems, or a variety of reasons. One can be poor product, right? Or poor service, poor communication from the company out. So with these wonderful AI tools out there that can do predictive analysis, you can plug your data into that, and it can tell you, like, gee, a person who's based on folks who have left, who have churned out, who have left, canceled their subscriptions. Wow, 6 months before that, they only logged in, 30% of the time, or their activity went from 5 hours a week to 2 hours a week, or whatever that may be. So that's a great example where AI should be brought in to look at that data and provide a list to customer success and say, here's the profile of the next 10 folks that have a good chance of churning, dropping our service. Let's go after them now. So now they can interact with them, talk to them.
Right, or they could make sure that they put in like an email sequence or something that happens around that time frame when they know people start dropping off. Again, that's such good data analysis and feedback. To know that, like you said about the login, right? There's so many things you can do with that to then reach out to maybe keep them on board. Yeah.
Right. Which, by the way, you can do that without AI. It just takes forever and nobody wants to do it. You know what I mean? It's a pain. Right. So you're looking at spreadsheets, but with AI, that's where I've seen it work too. It's like, wow, look at all this cool stuff, so data that comes back.
One of the things that you did mention, and this is let's talk about the cost of doing business, which is working for free. You worked on spec there when you filmed yourself doing that video and decided to just like pass them out, right? That's free. And that's what people do now with marketing and free opt-ins, right? So I guess the cost of doing business is, a lot of the times as an entrepreneur, like, you've got to do the work first. It's no different than being a writer in Hollywood. No one just pays you to write a script. You write the script on spec, and then, you know what I mean? And then you're presenting it. It's like, just go, well, I could write that. They'd be like, great, show me. So I think that that's important. I early coaches sometimes do this. They're like, hey, I'll offer a free masterclass, or I'm doing discounted sessions, or, something to get clients, to get feedback. That has to be part of the cost of doing business if you don't have the money for massive ads and employees right away, right? So I know that that's a little bit of a philosophy of yours, right? And I think that, and my former mentor, Mark Sisson, was always like, hey, you give away, it's the free information, it's the free stuff, right? Then now, so that's part of it. And I think people sometimes are resistant to that. So talk about the importance of those things.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head there too. First of all, not all folks can be an entrepreneur for that very reason. Not everyone's cut out to be that. And that's okay, right? I mean, not everyone is going to be as successful with your books, everything you do, the passion you have behind it, which, by the way, that's what drives a lot of this. Like, this sweat equity. I want
to quote Caddyshack right now. I just wanted to be like, immediately I thought the world needs ditch diggers too, right? But no, seriously.
Yes. Yeah. That's, I remember that scene too. I've used that before too. That's funny.
Sorry about that.
No, good. I like it. So if you don't have the passion for things, like I had the passion to write those tapes, I had the passion for Mobile Planet. I'm working on a course now, which I have a passion for it, right? So it's, in my opinion, it's hard, like, to learn. The first time you used Microsoft Word, if someone said, hey, go write a story, or no, go figure it out. It's like, if you don't have a purpose, and purpose is huge. If you don't have a purpose for something, it's hard to learn, it's hard to do things. But if you have that vision and that and purpose in mind, then the cost of that, your time, is probably the least of your worries, because you're seeing the opportunity, you're rehearsing it. As a matter of fact, I'm about to mentor a guy, just reached out to me on Friday. He wants to get into nutrition, shakes and things like that, which I don't know anything about that. I'm not really that doesn't interest me per se, but what does interest me is I want to help him look at what his value proposition, his market, what he's going to do, how he's going to get there, and help him just set up the guardrails and make sure that he's going through those steps properly, and not, as the subject here, the cost of doing everything, going off in all these different directions, because he'll never make it if he does that. It's so hard, as we know, to start a business today. But focus on what's the number one. What does success look like to you? What would that be? Is it a relationship with a gym or a retail outlet or whatever? Then that's where you need to focus on. In addition to, like what you said, of course, you want to do freemiums, anything free, samples, all that. Like I did with the tapes. I sent out tons of tapes to all different people, and popcorn. Hey, watch the tape.
Yeah, and they did that
popcorn.
with Primal Kitchen too. They sent a ton of mayo to everybody and samples of their dressings. And of course, right,
Yeah.
that's a major cost, right? You got to factor that in, because you're sending
Yes.
boxes out to all the people in hopes that they're going to post it on their Instagram, and tell everyone how great it was.
Right. And
But that is actually a marketing payment, technically. I mean, kind of, if you look at it, right? I mean, it's just doing it in a different way.
yeah, I think for us, kind of, I know you have a physical book, and you have, I think, audiobooks as well. For content, that's where everybody, I think, gets a break, in the sense that, when I work with copywriters or content folks, if I'm with an organization, and I'll read a piece of copy they give me, and I go, man, this thing is flat. It technically has everything in it. And then I look at them and I said, you know what? Would you respond to this? And they look at me and I go, look, go write something with fewer words that you would respond to if you're this persona. And when you make that connection with someone like that, they kind of like, okay, this is not. I go, stop looking at this as a job. Enjoy this. What makes this person, what's going to make this person you react to this? I got to tell you, I've had very good success with that kind of example, when I speak to content writers. But as far as giving things away, yeah, content, to me, like, it's a great time for that. For if you understand your market, you solve that problem, dig into the emotional aspect of it. That's what I really try to do in any venture I'm in, is like, try to solve that problem that person is having, that I can do that for you if you come with us or buy this or whatever. Yeah.
What's interesting is that now, so back in the day, even really 15 years ago and beyond, it seemed like impossible as just a person on the street to go out and like do marketing, right? Because you always thought of marketing as advertising, as TV and magazines and big companies being able to afford that, right? And now, wow, you can just boost an Instagram post and pay Facebook, or there's so many ways for people to kind of get into the game of marketing where it really wasn't accessible, Casey. Like, it kind of wasn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But now with technology and the internet, it is. But it's also kind of gotten out of control, right? Because
Yes.
now it's so saturated with everyone teaching online marketing and all of the tricks, and you're going to, false claims. I made 11 million this month. And it's just coaches coaching coaches on coaching coaches. And you're like, Jesus, everybody stop. Right. So I'd love to hear from you. What excites you and what's interesting to you in the world of like online marketing for entrepreneurs, and what you're keeping your eye on, and what also is something that turns you off. Like, I'll tell you what really turns me off right now. And I know my audience already knows this, because I'm a no bullshit person from downtown Chicago, which is, I don't like salesy crap, and don't harass me and don't convince me to go take out a credit card to join your thing. These hard sales are brutal and I don't like it. And I think, I know I've had clients who, when I've been on a discovery call for something, the reason that they joined is because I didn't pressure them at the end of call, because I was like, hey, I want this to be right for you. Come on in if you want. And that was the thing that sold them. It wasn't the sales. So that's my personal thing. And I know the quote pain marketing, but sometimes it gets out of hand and it's brutal. And they're DMing people going, oh, so you don't want to be successful? You're okay. But like, I mean, just, it's like, it's really just bullshit. So give us your rundown on what you see on this topic. I know it's broad, but Go
Oh
on, go
no,
off
but
on.
I get it, and it's very frustrating. I get, I hate getting these and shame on LinkedIn. The spam you get now through Messenger on there. It's like it's crazy. I get,
Yeah.
it's just like, please stop. It's weird. TurboTax. Why is TurboTax offering me some consulting position? What does that have to do with anything in my profile or anything I've ever done? Other
Yeah.
than paying taxes. It's like, why am I getting these messages? Number one. Number two, please, if you're going to message somebody on LinkedIn, have it be very short. Don't give them 3 paragraphs because no one's going to read it. Number
Yeah.
one, and make sure it's a real target too. And that what really drives me crazy. And we're all getting a barrage on our phones now. We get these texts now through whatever social sites you're on. You're getting this broad marketing just push because why? All they have to do is they're buying lists or however they're scraping the internet, and with the push of a button, they can send out literally hundreds of thousands of emails and messages in less than an hour, right? In a few minutes. So they don't care. And that should tell you something about the person who's reaching out to you, is that if they're reaching out to you that way in a shotgun approach and they're providing or they're giving you an avalanche of just BS. And here's the thing too. I truly believe this. Like when you read a book or a piece of content that resonates with you, you can tell if that person or that organization is invested in that solution or they know that problem firsthand. Versus, I started noticing this a few years back and reading. I'll pick up a book here and there and read on new subjects, and I've done a lot of things. So when I read about growing a business or marketing or this or that, I start reading and go, "This is bullshit. This person read somebody else's book and regurgitated
Yes.
it and reworded it."
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you
100%.
can tell that too, right? I mean, I can
Mhm.
feel like this is versus the ones that I've read and I go, wow, this guy was on the front lines. I can tell, I've been
Mhm.
there when you and your partner are in the parking lot and you're $100,000 in debt. You have no money, and you say failure is not an option, and you say F it. You go back in, you make a few calls, and NEC gives you a check for 16 grand to be on the cover.
Well,
That is what it takes to succeed, right?
and you're very seasoned, but this brings up that notion of like a couple examples. First of all, in the health coaching world, like, do you want to get coached by a 25-year-old, or do you want to get coached by my former client Barbara, who's 58 and has a ripping body because she walks talk and it's, she lived up to it. Look, she's 58 and she's ripped, like
Yeah.
maybe you want to learn from the long-standing seasoned person, right? Who also has gone through menopause and other hormonal change, like things that do affect weight. So that to me, like I would look at that. I'd rather be coached by someone who maybe had more longevity in that game. Like, are you going to take anti-aging advice from the 85-year-olds?
Yeah.
So I think the same thing goes like in this marketing world, you have to look at it. I mean, I always laugh all the time. Are you seeking out a coach who has only been successful by selling you on something, right? Like, were they ever
Yeah.
successful marketing any other courses before they decided to teach people how to market courses? Are they only making money off of that? I'm not saying they still wouldn't have good tips or be someone to follow or buy their stuff from. But it is very interesting because you look at some of the stuff, you're like, well, the only like you're teaching manifestation, but you only manifested all the money by teaching the manifestation. You didn't really manifest a bunch of shit first and then teach it,
Right.
right? And so I think it's important for you got to vet your experts here in this world pretty a little bit harder because everybody's making these claims. It's all out there. Everyone can make a pretty website. And I'm kind of there for the people that are seasoned, have more experience, and it's not uncommon to ask someone to like show your work or ask for a review from someone or to talk to someone's former client. So I just wanted to make that point there because there's just a lot of BS out there and people are spending a lot of money and getting roped into false promises.
Yeah, and you're right. There is no get rich quick scheme. I mean, they all, I should say, there are get rich quick schemes or schemes. They are that. There is no shortcut. There isn't, I always tell a story like even with Microsoft or Twitter or Facebook, they didn't start those companies saying, I'm gonna create an empire and I'm gonna have 40,000 people work for me and I'm gonna dominate the world. They didn't start out that way. They started out because, Bill Gates wanted to provide an OS for IBM or Mark Zuckerberg didn't have any friends, so he created a website so he could have friends. They didn't have no idea that it was going to grow into something like that. That it would be, so it's hard to plan. I'm going off on a different tangent, I think, but it's hard to plan, for, or it's hard to create that type of success from the ground up. It's something you do to start, you move out, and then you grow. So you get that experience behind that, where people that try to buy a book and like create your next $100 million company, read this book. It's like, okay,
Well, you're making the point that's very important, which is you have to step into it. You have to step on the trail. You're never going to find the offshoots, right? Like the Facebook, like he just wanted friends. That was the beginning. He didn't consider he'd be where he is at now. I'm sure he has moments where he's like, oh my God, my young self would have never imagined this. But that's the faulty problem people get into, at least when I coach, whether it's like they're writing a book or they want to start a business, or it's usually it's too much way down in the end result of what could be and not in the current moment and building it step by step. And so I appreciate that, because there is too much get rich quick marketing out there, right? And people aren't factoring in the fact that this is a process and takes steps.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There is, and there's certain rules too, right? And there are steps, there's structure, like this young guy I might meet with on Friday, which I'm sure you've experienced with folks you've mentored, or someone who's mentored you. And I feel I get it both ways as well, that when you hear something about just the fundamentals that you need to really bring to any new venture or opportunity before you kick it off, that there's certain things. Like I had a guy tell me he wanted to start this fresh ground coffee business, and get a trailer and do all these things. He goes, yeah, I think I'm going to go buy a trailer. I go, why are you buying a trailer now? You don't even have a plan. Why would you waste your time buying a trailer now? And he looked at me, he got scared. He goes, oh, you're right. It's like,
he just saved him a ton of pain and suffering right there.
God,
I mean,
I know. I was
like, why don't you call in and find out how much it is to get coffee from wherever you want the beans? Like, start somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I had someone presented to me an idea once, and this is where critical thinking is really important, everyone, because I had a friend that was like, I had this idea. He's like, changethepyramid.com, like, changing the food pyramid. We have to change the government food pyramid. And I said, oh, so you want to be a lobbyist in Washington? He was like, wait, what? I go, where's the business? Where's the money? Like, I don't understand how this is a business. You're trying to go change something from the government. That means you're going to have to like get money from meat lobbies if you're going to be like, you're going to, this is not, I don't know. And he just started to think about it. And we started to go down all the route. And he realized, of course, within 5 minutes, like, oh yeah, some ideas are not businesses. Okay. So you really do have to critically think your way through all of these moments before you go by the website, changethepyramid.org or whatever it is that you're going to do. And I think people jump too quickly to the end. So yeah. What are some other lessons that you've learned along the way that you'd like to impart with us, or some stories you'd like to share to inspire others, or even personal stories of people you mentored, or things about mentors you've had that you admire? Anything?
Yeah, I would say, if it's a great question right now, because I'm about to help this person, and I'm working on, again, I'm knee deep, I'm neck deep in this program I'm working on right now. And I have to remind myself, I'm very focused on what I'm doing. But the big thing, that I always talk about, and it really, about the subject, the cost of doing everything. It's like, there's never been a time in history where there's more distractions. Technology is wonderful, and it's also insane, right? Because there's just so much going on out there. You can sign up for so much. You can do so much, or try to, and everyone's trying to get your subscription. I asked a CEO of a very popular calendar program. I said, so why do people churn out? And they said, well, because they bought our solution and internally no one really sponsored it. So they needed this solution. They thought, I know the solution's great, so I think it was the right thing for them. But internally, nobody, because everyone's busy, nobody sponsored it, rolled it out properly, did anything. So 12 months rolls around. What do? Boom, they're out. So that's, and they wasted 25,000 or whatever it cost for that service. The company that provided it, they see a churn and they can address that too. What they need to do, and I'm sure they do, but they need to make sure when they sign a new customer that they handhold and make sure they're using it and check in with somebody and assign a sponsor. But that little example there is really what everyone, would do good by focusing on what matters. Understand the value you're going to deliver. If you're a startup, what's that value? How do you communicate that? Understand where you want to go. What's it look like? I'm not a big fan of the 5 year. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? How about where do you see yourself in 6 months and in 1 year?
I
And
like
then
that better.
after the 1 year, you can do another 2 years or something like that.
Yeah,
Because
that's great.
things change, right? I mean, hey, you got to be fluid and everything. But it's the distraction that's really tough because, I'm not immune to that. I'm very much aware of it. I have my blinders on a lot of things right now because I need to focus on what I'm working on. And, but still, I like engaging with other folks. I'm meeting with some other folks tomorrow on different subjects, but I know that I'm not going to take on anything personally um, until I've finished what I'm working on right now. And it's a huge commitment, and that translates to anybody out there that wants to launch a business or they want to grow their business is to really focus. And then the other thing is, if you're the leader, be a good leader, communicate with your team, have everyone feel like they can contribute. Don't get into these toxic environments where it's chaotic, right? Whoever throws their hand up quickest gets the attention, even though everyone else is doing what their job as well. And the other thing I would say too is that I'm a big fan of this, especially in larger companies. I mean, if it's too large, it's a little bit difficult, but larger companies or smaller, but is share the challenge. It's not always about, oh, we hit our numbers this month, or we did this, or that, whatever it is. We signed the new customers. How about this? We're not going to hit our new customer count. We're not going to hit our revenue. What can we do? I'm a big fan of, like, in the middle of the month, I meet with marketing and with sales. Like, are we going to hit our numbers? Do we have enough sales pipe? Do we have um, enough going to be closing? Because in the middle of the month, I could still make some changes that could possibly affect the outcome of that month. So by challenging folks, which they really like that too, that they like to be challenged. If you tell your team, we need help, we need to work together, you're telling them that you trust them, which is huge, right? You're letting them know that you
Yep.
value their opinion, that you want their input. This isn't all about, clanking champagne glasses because we hit $1 million that month, but it's everything that took us to get there. So I would say that the biggest thing is really being a good leader and providing the vision and the tactics to execute on that, the resources as much as you can to do that, and just work with folks, as best you can.
I want to transition to, I think it's important. It's not to say that you can't be a successful entrepreneur if you are not attentive to one's health, but I also really know that the level of focus required for me, let's say I have a third book that is not out yet, but I have to now, it's written, but it's now I've got to like do the chess playing and the editing and like the personal organization of it, which is going to require a lot of extended focus. And I know that what I eat, what I drink, what I do with my day is going to affect that. And so it's really important to me. How do you feel that is for you? Because have you always been athletic? I know I've seen you, like I said, I mean, if you guys saw Casey, he's kind of an example of anti-aging. You should be a poster for what,
Oh God.
your 60s should be. So how has that affected your life? And how do you feel it's contributed, if anything, if positively, towards entrepreneurship and being able to be a good leader?
Yeah, that's thank you for saying that, by the way. Um, you know, it's something personal that I probably get it from my father. My brother works out as well. He's a year older than me. But we've always worked out. I've always worked out, and it gives me that energy. Because, as you know, it takes a lot of energy to do this stuff, right? I mean, you got to be on your game, and
Yeah.
we go for walks and we work out. I like to mountain bike. I like to road bike. I think it's very important to do that because I think I've been blessed with, I haven't had illnesses or things like that, right? So, and I know as we all do, as you get starting to get older, with each decade, 40s, you start seeing people, pass away for whatever reason, bad habits or whatever it may be. It could be genetic. And then 50, 60. So what I want to do is, for me personally, is that it's a stress reliever, even though that isn't really why I'm doing it, but it's a stress reliever. It's strength too, right? It's strength, literally strength.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like working out. I like mountain biking, road biking. And I also like, a glass of scotch and a cigar every now and then as well. So I, kind of balance,
Right.
kind of balance that
Human
as
and
well.
live life doesn't mean you can't have any fun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think it's important because if you're out of shape, like really out of shape, it's really going to be tough because the stress that's put on you from just trying to get things done. And I think there's good stress, and then there's the kind of stress that eats you up that you have to learn how to not, let that affect your life as much as you can. But I think it's very important to eat right, work out, and work out doesn't mean you're a gym rat. It doesn't have to be that. Just go on a walk, and a real walk, not a stroll. Like I tell people, don't go on a stroll, go on a walk. There's a difference. Strolling is like,
Totally different. Yeah.
yeah, I'm just gonna walk around. No, go find a hill to climb, or to walk up and do it aggressively and get your heart rate going. So yeah, I think it's very important for that, and you'll feel better too.
And we're lucky because we live in Agora Hills. Other people, hey, got to take the stairs maybe if you're in a flat place. As we wrap up, tell us, how can people reach out to you if they're interested in mentorship or interested to learn more about what you have coming up to sort of follow along with your continued journey of entrepreneurship? Is that connecting with you on LinkedIn, and we'll put it in the show notes, but what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, it'll be LinkedIn for sure is the best way now. And then what I'm working on, I'm sure I'll speak with you all about it. But yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. And just so you know, real quick, I'm the guy. If I have one, I don't know, this is a weakness. I don't know what it is. I can speak to somebody I haven't spoken to in 10 years and call them right now, and I act as if we spoke yesterday. Right? Yeah. I just immediately go into it. I also do that with CEOs that I don't know. Like I reached out to this guy, and the message I send goes back to what would it take for me to react right to it. So, and I got to tell you, it's like I'm excited. I'm speaking with a guy I've never spoken with tomorrow. He's the CEO of a company that's very exciting, and I just simply sent him a message just saying, and I start off, by the way, everyone out there, through LinkedIn, I start off with, I'm not selling anything. That's literally what I put at the top, because everyone, and then I said, hey, I find what you're doing very interesting and exciting. I would welcome the opportunity to chat with you and share some of my experiences, whatever, boom, and it's funny. I'll get a response back in the last probably 30 days from a couple of CEOs in different industries. And what I'm pleasantly surprised, and you'll get ghosted by a lot of people for sure, but the ones that get back to you, it's a trip, Elle. They get back to you like in a minute. Nice. The ones that want to talk to you, the ones that want to just talk to somebody, because when I had Mobile Planet, these other things, if somebody would have contacted me from a successful company and said, oh, I was at CDW when they were at 50 million, I worked in marketing. Oh my God, I want to talk to this guy. You know what I mean? It's like, right. I need to talk to this person. So I appreciate that when I send these messages out to people, and hey, everybody's busy. Not everyone needs to talk to me or knows me or anything like that. But I that's one of the things when I sent them off, I kind of like laugh. All right, is this guy going to get back to me? But yesterday a guy did. We're talking tomorrow, so it'll be fun.
That's amazing. I look forward to hearing more about it. Well, thank you so much. And we'll put everything in the show notes to connect with you. And we'll see everyone else next week. Is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave our audience with?
Nope. Elle is a great person. I see her every now and then. I'll wave to you, and she's in great shape too. So I'll throw you that one.
Walking that dog every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for joining in, and continued success on your journey.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this show, I would so appreciate you leaving a review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about partner discounts on amazing products, visit elleruss.com/discounts.